It's Monday night, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And yes, folks, I am the generational talent in Garden State Media, and I continue to be the hero you need right now because, ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest, the establishment media in New Jersey continues to lie to you every single day. But guess who won't? That's right. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy October, everyone. As you can see, I'm rocking pink. Here on Jersey First TV, we are rocking pink during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is celebrated every October. As you know, I'm a big volunteer and proponent for the American Cancer Society and making strides against breast cancer. A little bit more on that later during the show. But we will be rocking pink all throughout October here on the program, folks, and showing our appreciation and our support for the American Cancer Society. So, of course, like, comment, and share tonight's episode on all of your social media feeds. It takes a few seconds, ladies and gentlemen. It really helps get the show out to more people. And, of course, shows your support for Jersey First TV. Folks, again, I can't say it enough, really. I mean, how much it means to me about all of your support here on the program as we're rocking pink. And we're thinking pink, obviously, throughout the month of October. So do us a favor. Make sure you share all of our content here throughout Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Folks, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and X. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Click the bell there, and you'll be automatically subscribed and notified of all the great content brought to you by Jersey First TV. And, of course, whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download it and take Jersey First TV with you anywhere at any time, whether you're doing errands. Listen, it's still very unseasonably warm here. Maybe you're going down to the beach, down the shore, and guess what? You're probably on your smartphone. Check out Jersey First TV. Trust me, you won't regret it. Of course, I'm always here front and center, folks, representing Jersey First TV. As always, educating and advocating for the residents here in our great state of New Jersey. Check out brand new episodes of Real Talk every Monday night. Check your local listings, of course, for start times. And I'll bring you the best analysis and commentary that you won't see anywhere else. And again, I'll continue to bring you fearless independent media, folks, every single week here via Jersey First TV. You want to stick around for final thoughts, folks? I'm going to have a lot to say about, well, again, why the establishment media continues to disappoint us. And when we think about disappointments, well, let's be honest, folks. We always think about the establishment media, whether anything else. But when we don't think about disappointments, we think about the traffic here on Real Talk. Once again, another successful month of September here in 2025 between Facebook, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, and on Instagram. Folks, 85,000 plus views for the month of September. Again, without all of you, it would not be possible. And again, I'm deeply humbled. And as you know, I'm not the most humble guy around. But again, without all of you, that number behind me would not be possible. So once again, thank you to everybody, to all my friends, family, colleagues, frenemies, haters. You all tune in every Monday night, and we all know why. More on that later during the broadcast. And folks, again, as I said early on the show, I'm the hero you need right now because the establishment media continues to disappoint you and lie to you. And when we think about disappointments, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we think about David Cruz at NJ Spotlight News and NJPBS. I'll share a little bit more about, quite frankly, why David Cruz continues to make us all laugh instead of informing us and educating us, which is what originally, folks, we think is public broadcasting should be doing. But we all know David Cruz doesn't do that. More on Uncle Dave during Final Thoughts. And also, ladies and gentlemen, I have a special comment about another joke in, I guess, supposed journalism, and that's Leonard Filipowski. Yes, we all know the professional agitator who thinks he's a journalist. Well, I'll dissect his latest little meltdown and his little antics during the recent Hispanic parade up and down Bergen Line Avenue in northern Hudson County. Folks, I'll remind you why, let's be honest, nobody takes Leonard Filipowski seriously. And the latest example, well, I'll tell you why. You want to stick around for that, folks, during Final Thoughts and a special comment here tonight on the broadcast. Folks, again, I can't say enough. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode here. We're rocking pink during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we appreciate your support here via Jersey First TV. Folks, it's election season, less than 30 days to go for Election Day coming up on November the 4th. And as you know, I've been covering election 2025 better than anybody in media in New Jersey. And again, it's why I continue to bring you fearless, independent media that you can always rely on. It's always Real Talk here. And let's talk to one of the more interesting candidates, because as we all know, folks, the gubernatorial race is front and center, as well as the assembly races in the state legislature. All 80 state assembly seats are up for grabs. But folks, municipal races matter. All politics is local. And you know what? Here in Hudson County, we have a lot of interesting mayoral races, of course, in the city of Secaucus, the city of Kearney, the township of Guttenberg, of course, in Hudson County's largest city, Jersey City. But let's not forget, in the Mousecore City, there's a hotly contested mayoral race as well coming up in less than 30 days. I've talked to some candidates already. Let's talk to a new candidate here on the campaign trail. Folks, he's my good friend, Dr. Michael Russo, joins us live right now on Real Talk. Michael, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me, Fernando.
Appreciate it, Michael. And again, listen, it's the late innings here. It's getting scrappy. It's getting fickle, obviously, between you and all the candidates. I've had the chance to talk to other candidates here on the campaign trail, and I'm happy to have you on here. Quite frankly, it's a very crowded field. So I think many would argue that the goal would be to just get to the runoff in December. But maybe that's a little bit more premature. How are you approaching this race?
Yeah, and again, I mean, it is a crowded field, right? We have six candidates in the city of Hoboken running. But I approach this race like I approach every other race, right? I've never run a negative campaign in my life. I'm not going to start now. My goal is to take this one step at a time. I feel very confident we're going to be into a runoff with one of my opponents, and then we'll have another election in December. So we're taking it one step at a time. We're knocking on doors. We're out every day. We have a great team out there, a team of volunteers that are just giving their all for the campaign, and I'm really, really excited about all of it.
Michael, I know you have to take the high road. I don't, so that's great because it's my show. So
I know you do. You're doing my man Scoop Cruz dirty over there.
Well, listen, Uncle Dave has been doing us a disservice for a while, and I'll share later on why the latest example is it's a reason why Trenton doesn't fund public broadcasting. It's a reminder.
But this is one of the reasons why I love you, because you and I can agree. We can agree to disagree on stuff, and we still love it.
Sure. Again, it's a reminder why Trenton decided not to give $75 million to public broadcasting. It's a reason. It's why independent media like me is growing for a reason. But more on that later. But certainly, Michael, one of the things that I think is fair to say, and again, I don't have to take the high road here, but it boggles my mind when I talk to people in Hoboken, when I go to events, people reach out to me via DM, via email, even phone calls. And it's crazy to me. I grew up in Hudson County my whole life. Obviously growing up in northern Hudson County, I frequent Hoboken often for different reasons. Sunday fun day for the NFL, parties, dates, whatever you want to call it. I love going to Hoboken. It's a great city, a lot of great history and heritage, and it's rich in tradition. But it drives me crazy when I think about the last 8 years under Ravi Bala, who unfortunately, God help us, he's going to be very likely the next state assemblyman in the 32nd legislative district, along with the other, woke queen of his, Katie Brennan. But in Hoboken, it just seems like, okay, we've had 8 years of Ravi Bala. There's a sample size there. Who in their right mind thinks that someone like the prom queen, Emily Jabor, and Joe Quintero should even get 4 more hours or 4 more minutes, much just 4 more years, when we know consistently the record in Hoboken has been shitty under Ravi Bala? I think deductive reasoning would tell anyone that Emily Jabor is just going to continue the same awful trajectory as Ravi Bala in Hoboken, and yet somehow she gets fundraising and she's getting some support. It boggles my mind. And again, I'm trying to call balls and strikes fairly here, but it's just like, wait a second, like what are people thinking in Hoboken, Michael?
Yeah, look, I think you have two different thoughts here, right? Like there's a progressive side of the city of Hoboken that sees some of those policies that happened over the last 8 years with Ravi, and they want to continue some of that. And I think one of my opponents does carry that over. And then I think there's a lot of people in the city of Hoboken, that don't believe it's going in the right direction, and they want to see a massive change. And I am one of those candidates who is going to change the city of Hoboken drastically, right? We need to restructure what government looks like. We need to save our taxpayers money. We need to make sure that our city is extremely safe. And not that it isn't, right? But there has been an uptick and people are taking notice. People are concerned about those quality of life concerns, like the e-bikes all over our sidewalks, like the homeless population that is not only being treated unfairly, but they're also all over the place where they're disruptive to businesses. And we need to make sure that we're taking care of our residents, whether they're permanent residents or they're visiting. So I think those are some of the big things that we really have a drastic difference in what we're presenting. And I'm the only candidate in this race that is talking to those very specifics and how we're going to change them and how we're going to make our city a better city to control some of these concerns, right? And then, of course, the affordability in the city is a major problem.
Yeah, and let's get into that. Let's get into policy prescriptions here because, listen, I've gone after the current administration for years now. I always keep saying consistently, like, they care more about pronouns than property taxes and public safety. That's just my opinion. But let's talk about these issues about affordability, and let's start with property taxes. And again, we think about Hoboken. I've grown up in my whole life. I've gone to Hoboken. I've seen the waterfront change. I've seen developers build up new apartment buildings. I've gone into Hoboken. I've had different exes live in these high luxury rentals, and I'm like, holy shit! Like, you're paying what, $2,500 for 800 square feet? My living room is 800 square feet. I'm like, what? So it's like, it almost makes me wonder what exactly is going on here when it comes to affordability. But Michael, honestly, is there really a magic wand to address property taxes and affordability in a city like Hoboken, where it's still very densely populated? People still move to it because it's attractive for a lot of different reasons. But is there a magic wand that can be waved?
It's not a magic wand, Fernando, but it's hard work, right? And it's political will. And I think that's another stark difference between myself and my opponents. I'm very clear on what I like to do. I want to restructure that entire government from the top down, make sure that we don't have 10 directors and assistant directors to those directors, and then even assistants to those assistant directors, right? That's just wasteful spending. So we need to really restructure what government looks like so that we can save the taxpayer some money, right? On the affordable side of housing, right? We have some city-owned assets that we could really leverage so that we're building that middle-class income kind of residencies, those working families that are in the city of Hoboken who want to stay here, who work here, and who will thrive here if we actually put those programs in place. And again, I've been very specific in those policies. About a year ago, I started putting out these policies, and it was a calculated risk, right? Like, I knew my opponents would either do one of two things, right? They would either try to emulate those policies, or they would try to attack them. And you're actually seeing both of them, right? So some of my opponents are starting to pick up on those policies and they're emulating them. And some of my opponents are just on attack mode, right? It's the blame game. It's a blame and shame.
Now, you talk about assets. And folks, if you just joined us live right now, it's 6:09 here on the East Coast. Takes 5 seconds. Like, comment, share tonight's episode, folks. Hoboken Mayoral candidate Dr. Michael Russo joins us live here this evening on Real Talk, of course, discussing the mayoral candidate election, obviously coming up on November the 4th here in 2025. Again, folks, like, comment, and share. We appreciate your support here on Jersey First TV. Now, Michael, you mentioned about assets. For our audience tuning in tonight, and for residents maybe who are still on the fence and are undecided, let's break this down. What are some of the assets that you're referring to? And realistically,
Sure.
what's the turnaround time about these assets being used to benefit Hoboken taxpayers?
Yeah, I don't pretend that this is going to be a snap of a finger and we're going to be building these types of projects in 6 months. It's going to take some time. But again, if you look at the history in Hoboken over the last 16 years, our rateable base has not really changed much. So our taxes have increased over the course of all of those years. I was one of the only council people to vote against almost every one of those tax increases across that time frame. You can't pretend to be the champion of the workforce and the middle income families in Hoboken when you continue to vote for these increases. You just can't do that. And some of my opponents are doing that, right? They want to pretend that they're all about increasing the affordable housing stock in Hoboken or trying to decrease the expenses for our residents, but they continue to vote for these tax increases. So one of the plans that I have is to utilize city-owned assets. Let's use two different parcels of land. One is Garage B in the city of Hoboken, right? Garage B is something where we now have this municipal garage that is at its obsolescence. We need to rebuild that, right? And we take that garage, we rebuild it for our parking needs, but above it, we build middle income workforce housing at 100%. We don't do a mixed use there. We don't do some market rate and some low income and maybe a few middle income units. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making sure that we're utilizing these city-owned assets to really fill a need that we have not filled probably in the last 30 years, never mind the last 16.
Michael, let me ask you this because I think it's a question that really I think bears an inquiry about, and I think during this very crowded field, many have said to me, "Listen, maybe there's a pecking order when it comes to running for office, and whether it's municipal elections, legislative ones, or gubernatorial ones, right? People might think, well, certain people have to wait their turn, or maybe it's not his or her time yet." I've heard that when it comes to your campaign. When you hear that, maybe if you've gone knocking on doors, you've talked to people at mixers and say, hey, Michael's had a business. He's run this business. Some people are going to make commentaries about how you run your business. That's a discussion for another day. But you talking to potential constituents, your current constituents now, you're a councilman, right? Sure. So when we hear, hey, maybe this isn't Michael's time to run, maybe it's other people's time to run, what has been your response? Because I'm sure you've heard that chatter out there. It comes up every election cycle, whether it's for you, other opponents in the field. I'm not going to name them, but I think, sure, the reason educated guesses can conclude who I'm talking about. But the point is, maybe you've heard that chatter as well. What's been your response to people that have been adamant saying, well, I don't know, Mike's been in the council long enough. I don't know, maybe it's not his time. When is it really anyone's time? I mean, how do we come to that determination?
And that's exactly right? Like there is never really a pecking order, right? I never subscribed to that. I never believed that was really how we should approach our elected officials in not just the city of Hoboken, but anywhere, right? Anyone who has the qualifications, anyone who has a real plan to move the city forward, I think it behooves them to put their name on a ballot and make a run for it, right? Like, I'm not the person who's going to tell somebody that they should or they should not run for office. I never have, and I never will. Anybody who believes that they have something to add for the residents in the city of Hoboken, I welcome their candidacies. And for me, again, there's no pecking order, right? If not now, when, right? That's the question. If not who, then why, right? Like those are the types of questions that you always get. But I think you get those kinds of comments and questions from people who are just trying to exclude you from the conversation because they feel that you are the threat to them or their chosen candidate. And I think that goes on not just in Hoboken, but everywhere.
Now let's get into obviously other topics here. We've talked about property taxes and affordability. Here's one that really is near and dear to my heart because and again, not that Instagram is scripture, but you start seeing certain Instagram pages that monitor Hoboken life. Whether it's Hoboken Weekend, the Hoboken Girl, you name it. There's a plethora of them. And again, shout out to them. I don't hate on content creators. We're all in this business together. I get all that. But another dreaded P word during this race, Michael, that really is near and dear to me, and that's public safety. And it just seems that, this administration and those that are running, I guess, on the coattails of this administration are sort of maybe like poo-pooing the fact that there are parts of Hoboken that have become a shithole. It's a concern for residents to go out at night. Young women, families, the elderly, children, you name it. It just seems like there are pockets of Hoboken that are becoming increasingly dangerous. And, again, it just seems like City Hall is not interested in real effective policing. Should you get into December into a run, which I think you'll get into a runoff. That's my opinion, calling balls and strikes fairly. I think you'll be in the runoff. Having said that, should you be successful and take office in January 1st, 2026, how do you want to approach policing in Hoboken and do it better than what we've seen or lack thereof for the last few years in the Mouse Crest City?
I know you said you don't have to be politically correct, and I would not characterize any portion of Hoboken as a shithole. So I'm gonna call you out on that one.
Fair enough.
But again, at the end of the day, as I said earlier, right? Safety is probably the top priority in the city of Hoboken, at least for me, right? And it's not that we're getting these massive crimes all across the city every day, but there has been an uptick, and the residents in the city feel that uptick, even if it's just their perception. Even if it's just their perception, we need to address it as leaders in the city of Hoboken. And I think some of my opponents are shying away from this conversation because, again, they don't have any real solutions. Real solutions on day one for me is sit down with the police chief, public safety director, really change how we're going to community police, right? Make sure our police officers are walking their beat, make sure we have a permanent parks patrol in our parks every day, all day, make sure that we're addressing the e-bike concern across the city, stopping those reckless riders on our sidewalks, in our streets, making sure that we're addressing our homeless population, and we're doing that with the utmost dignity, and providing our police department with all the training and all the resources and all the tools that they need so that they feel that the administration in the city of Hoboken has their back. Now, they step over that line, we're going to go after them. And they know that. They're really well trained to this point. So any lack in any training, any concerns that they have as far as any assets or tools that they need, we'll make sure we provide it for them. And we'll continue to do that. But on day one, we need to make sure that the city is safe in actuality and perceived to be safe, even for those parents and those residents who believe that there's more of a concern.
Fair enough. Michael, let me ask you this. Running a campaign is expensive. Obviously, you need a staff. You need to raise money. I think it's been an issue that really resonates across, I think, any mayoral campaign right now during this election cycle. We've seen it brought up in Jersey City, cities like Kearney, other parts like Parsippany throughout New Jersey. I mean, a lot of these races become very localized, right? And I think, obviously, one of the biggest concerns that residents have is the say or the influence of developers, right? Whether it's in Jersey City, whether it's in Parsippany, whether it's in Morristown. But in Hoboken, obviously, there is this narrative out there that developers have or are having their way with candidates in the sense of who's donating to who. And ultimately, if you're taking dollars from developers, and I mean this generically, like any candidate out there, if you're taking money from developers, how can residents be sure that you as a candidate aren't just going to bow to developers, especially with all these sky rises going up? Again, as I mentioned, I don't recognize the waterfront or Sinatra Drive from 10, 15 years ago. But if any candidate is taking money from developers, what can you tell residents tonight that you're going to stand up to developers, even though that, hey, maybe developers have donated to various candidates in this campaign? And what can you assure residents that, hey, you're going to put your foot down when you have to when it comes to developers? What can you say to that?
Yeah. So 2 points that I continuously make out on the campaign trail when I'm doing any kind of interviews like this. First and foremost, I'm a tenant. I rent. I've been a renter in Hoboken for a long time. I live with the same fears that every single other tenant in the city of Hoboken lives with on a daily basis. I have 4 children in a home, right? I'm the sole breadwinner in my family, and I need to make sure that my family is protected like everybody else. Right? So that's first and foremost. Second, the developers that donate to my campaign, or even mostly all the other campaigns in the city of Hoboken, they're not just developers, right? People want to characterize them that way because of their own political narrative. But a lot of these developers are residents in the city, they're business owners in the city, and they've had relationships, at least with me, for 30 plus years, right? And that to me is the same as asking a tenant to donate to me, right? Because I've known somebody for 30 years, whether they're a tenant or a landlord, I'm gonna seek out those campaign donations because I'm not a multimillionaire. I can't self-fund my campaign, right? And no, I don't begrudge anybody who's doing that, but I go to work every day, right? My day consists of me working. When I get home from work, I get out on the campaign trail and I have to raise my money to make sure that my campaign is a viable campaign. And I will not run away from that, right? So how and why would I stand up to developers? Again, we need developers in the city of Hoboken. Development for me is not just luxury condos or luxury rentals. We need a new school. Who's going to do that? A developer's going to do that. We need recreational facilities. Developers are going to do that. We need a municipal aquatics complex in the city of Hoboken. A developer is going to do that. Those are the things that I will make sure that developers are doing in the city of Hoboken. And my record is very clear, standing up to developers when in fact they come before the city council. There were big developments that have happened through my tenure on the council that I voted against. I mean, look at a massive development in Hoboken right now, 1,300 units that are being proposed that we had to vote on because it became a settlement agreement. I voted against the original settlement agreement. Unfortunately, my council colleagues voted for it, and now we had to kind of take that down the road because we're into a settlement agreement when we have to hold up our end of the bargain. So there's a lot of history there that really dictates how and why I've done what I've done when it comes to developers, and how I will stand up to them each and every time they come before the city.
All right, fair enough. You mentioned schools. Obviously, I think that part of the dynamic that exists with a mayor is that the mayor of a city will have to work with their legislators to be able to get some money from Trenton, consequently, into the city for the building of a new school. Case in point, where I live, my mayor is also my state senator. I think there's no disagreement that Brian Stack does an incredible job of going to Trenton and getting funding back into his legislative district, into new schools. We see it into Union City. We see it now in West New York. We see it also in North Bergen, towns within his legislative district. Now, Hoboken, after redistricting, happens to fall under the new 32nd legislative district, which is obviously different than it was before the recent census and the redistricting that went on. Obviously, that includes all the city of Hoboken and the Jersey City Heights and downtown Jersey City. Clearly, unless some miracle happens, it's very evident that Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan are going to be the new assemblymen and assemblywomen in the 32nd legislative district. State Senator Raj Mukherjee, obviously who's not up until 2027, is the state senator. Do you feel confident that as mayor, you'll be able to talk to these legislators and say, hey, when it comes to budget season or going to Trenton, trying to bring some money back in the district, Hoboken needs a new school. I would argue Hoboken needs a new high school or maybe a middle school. Do you feel confident?
Or both.
Sure. Do you feel confident that as mayor, you can talk to these legislators and get them to go to Trenton and bring something back to the Mouse Core City?
Yeah, I do. I feel very confident, right? And I think that's, again, going back to how I would kind of position the city of Hoboken in those conversations, right? So Ravi Bala as mayor, myself as councilman, there were times where I agreed with Ravi with some of his policy positions, right? And we worked really, really well together to get those accomplished. And then there were times where we disagreed wholeheartedly. And I made that very known. But we've always had a decent working relationship. He going down to Trenton as an assembly person, I think that relationship will continue. And I think as a mayor and a municipality within his district, I think I would have a lot more say to lean on our assembly people, both he and Katie at that point, and our senator as well, Raj. Right? I think we have the ability to sit with them and say, hey, these are the things that we need as a community in the city of Hoboken. And this is what I expect of you when it comes to trying to advocate for more funding, in this case, and in this example, the schools. Right? Let's do that from the state perspective. I also have a very good relationship with our congressman, right? So Rob is somebody who I would lean on for federal dollars. We have a situation right now in the city of Hoboken where some of those federal dollars are in question. We don't know what that's going to look like into the future. I think we, as a municipality, have to take all of that into consideration and really find out how and when we could change that dynamic without compromising our principles. But we need to really make sure we're working across the aisle, not only on a state level, on a federal level, and then on the county level as well. One other point when it comes to funding for schools, we have a premier university in the city of Hoboken. That relationship has been lacking for decades at this point. That needs to change immediately. And I've already started making overtures to Stevens to start conversations with them. I would love to partner with them so that they could help us to rebuild some of our infrastructure for our school system and really find a way where we rebuild that relationship. And it's really important to me. And I think it's something that we could do, again, day one.
Michael, obviously we know that it's a very crowded ballot. I think the county registrar's office knows that the ballot this year looks like a scroll from Game of Thrones almost, right? We have obviously a gubernatorial election. We have legislative races in all three legislative districts that encompass Hudson County. And of course, we have some very big municipal elections. Obviously, we have it in Kearney, we have it in Secaucus, we have it in Guttenberg, we have it in Hoboken and Jersey City. Interesting, though, next door in Jersey City, obviously it's a nonpartisan race, but all politics is local. It would seem that obviously, the stranglehold and really, I think the center of the Democrat universe really is the HCDO, Hudson County Democrat Organization. They've been very vocal and adamant about who they're supporting in nearby Jersey City. Conspicuous by their absence, it's been kind of quiet in Hoboken, where the normal Democrat apparatus has been kind of quiet during this municipal race, which I think some residents might say, this hasn't been as eventful as the Jersey City mayoral election. Hoboken's been a little more subdued. Any reason why I think that maybe, again, it's a nonpartisan race. I think it's fair to say everyone running for mayor in Jersey are probably Democrats, but no one's thinking about that in Hoboken right now. But regardless, it seems like the hierarchy or the leadership, and what I mean by that is the county executive is also the county Democrat Party chair, and also one of the other power brokers is State Senator and Mayor Brian Stack. They've been quiet in Hoboken. It almost seems like they're kind of just letting this, they're sitting this out and watching from, I guess, the bleachers to see what happens in Hoboken. Is that a concern for any of the candidates here, where normally Democrat elected officials are really in Hoboken and really trying to see where this race goes?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think the Democratic Party in the county of Hudson has a lot of eggs in one basket in Jersey City, right? I think they've made it very known who the party structure is supporting. I think they've been concentrating on that, and I think they're putting a lot of their resources and efforts into that Jersey City race. I think less so in the other municipalities that have local races, and I think that's probably a little by design, but probably more by necessity, because I think their concern is really to get the mayor in Jersey City elected that they have chosen to support. And we'll see on November 4th, we'll see where that goes in Jersey City, and then the other municipalities. But like Hoboken, I think Jersey City will wind up in a runoff as well, and then we'll see what the county does at that point.
Michael, the race in Hoboken has gotten very fickle. I think it's gotten a little chippy. To use some sports terms here, when you're banging under the bat, under the boards for a rebound, little elbows here, little jersey tucked there. It's gotten a little fickle lately. I think for a while people were concerned that the Hoboken race was very uneventful. Everything was very nice and polite. That's not the case with less than 30 days to go. Certainly, I think all the candidates are taking jabs at each other. Who are you most concerned with right now about the way that you're being portrayed, your record? Let's say candidates taking jabs at your personal life. I think you've been very transparent about business dealings in the past, right? Your businesses and everything. It seems like people have thought, well, that's fair game. I'm going to go after Michael Russo. I don't care. How have you been able to take that all in stride? Because again, that was going to come out. That was going to become fodder for conversation. How have you dealt with this?
Yeah, every night, Fernando, I go to bed, I put my head on that pillow and I sleep comfortably, right? Like, I know that, with my business, I kept my employees working all through COVID when not one patient could come into my office because I couldn't touch anybody, right? I made sure their families were fed. I made sure that they were comfortable, and I made sure that we did everything we could, because my employees throughout my entire career have always been like family to me, and I'll continue to do that. I wouldn't change one decision I made when it comes to my businesses, right? Like I would not change anything. When it comes to my opponents taking jabs, when you're the clear front runner in a race, that's what happens. It happens not just in Hoboken, but every single municipality, every single state, every single county, all across the country. And it's just par for the course. I've been involved in the world of government and politics for 22 years. And even time before that, right? Before I was ever elected. I don't let it get to me. I move forward. I make sure people understand what my position is, make sure they understand how I would govern, and make sure that they understand that I'm the right person for the job, and I'm going to do exactly what I say I'm going to do. And I don't think any of my opponents could actually take that same claim and make it.
Michael, any truth to the chatter that at some point, obviously, once we knew the mayor was not going to run for re-election, we knew that obviously one of the council members on his slate was going to run, essentially just try to just perpetuate the same awful record that he's had for 8 years. And, there was some chatter, again, you can tell me if I'm wrong or right, that I heard that, apparently there were members of the council that instead of consolidating behind one person, everyone just felt, well, I'm going to run for mayor. I don't care. And looking back now, obviously it's less than 30 days to go. How's it been perceived with people you're talking to in Hoboken? Was it better to consolidate with the council candidates that are now running for mayor, where someone could just run and, you all kind of rally behind each other, again, going up against Emily Jabor, who people would be like, well, that's going to be the Robbie, successor. We got to find a way to stop Emily. by all means necessary. Was there ever any chatter about that? Any truth to that?
Yeah, listen, I think at the beginning of all of this, there were council members who were hopeful that it wouldn't be such a crowded field. But remember, Fernando, when somebody says we have to all get behind one person, 99.9% of the times, the person saying that believes in their head that they're the one person. So, as I said to you earlier, I'm never the guy who's telling somebody that they should or they should not run. Anybody who thinks that they're going to add to the conversation, help the city of Hoboken, by all means, I think they should run. I think they should put their name on a ballot, and I think they should run for office. That's how we get better every single day. At the end of the day, some of my colleagues have said the common goal here is to make sure it's not one person. Well, that's not the common goal for me. The common goal for me is to make sure I win. That's the common goal for me, right? Like, I'm in this race to win. I'm not in this race to stop somebody else from winning, hoping that it's just not the one specific person. That's not my MO. That's not who I am. And that's honestly not what anyone should be talking about, because I'm bringing forward these ideas. These are very specific policy decisions that I'm talking about. I know I will make significant change in the city of Hoboken in the first 3 months of office. I know that,
okay,
right?
so
I feel that confident. And anyone who's talking about, well, let's get together so that we stop somebody else, that's not a clear plan for our residents. That's a cowardly way out, in my opinion. You either step up or you step aside. And I stepped up.
Well said. Another issue that is, I think, on the minds of a lot of residents, Michael, and again, I don't think there's a magic wand for this, but whether it's using eminent domain or I don't know the solution, but parking continues to plague residents. Obviously, whether it's people coming to visit Hoboken, whether it's for residents, a lot of lifers are being priced out of Hoboken, as we talked about, but also too, like the lack of parking. I mean, I know that, listen, it's sort of a common joke with my circle of friends. Whenever I go to Hoboken or anywhere, I find parking quickly. I don't know. I just seem to have that great, charm, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm lucky that way. But for residents in Hoboken, parking continues to be a serious concern. What would a Russo administration look like in the first 6 months to a year in terms of addressing parking? What's realistic and what's not realistic compared to all the chatter that's out there among all the candidates? What can really be done? Maybe not immediately, but what can be done within the first 6 months of a Russo administration to address parking?
Yeah, so we need information first, right? So the first month, real simple. I think the first thing that we do is we delineate spaces across the city. Then we will know exactly what our inventory is. If there's 9,000 on-street parking spaces and we know we issue 15,000 parking permit stickers across the city of Hoboken, well, we know there's a deficit there. That means we need to figure out how to build 6,000 new parking spaces in the city of Hoboken, right? So once we do that, we have the ability to really figure out what's next. Once we know what's next, now we start to build those parking garages. For 15, 16 years in the city of Hoboken, the city has changed its focus to say, let's stop building parking for residents because we want to limit the number of cars in the city of Hoboken, or we want to limit the access that those cars have. And I always thought that was a bad policy decision. I think for us, we need to make sure that we're housing the cars that we need, because the residents in the city of Hoboken who need their cars on a daily basis will always need their cars, and they need a place to put them. I travel out of Hoboken every morning, right? I commute to work. I need my car. I have to get out of Hoboken. I have to get back into Hoboken. And when I'm walking through Hoboken, I need a place for my car. So that's either on the street. I'm one of the lucky ones where I have an off-street parking space, right? In my building, we have a parking lot. So I have the ability to park off the street, but not everybody has that ability. So we need to make sure that we're building increased parking when it comes to new developments in the city of Hoboken, when it comes to city-owned assets, like I referenced earlier with Garage B, when we have these brand new developers who are coming into the city saying, hey, by the way, I own this property and I want to build. Well, we need to negotiate those redevelopment zones or the redevelopment plans to say, hey, by the way, we're going to need some parking. It goes back to my earlier comment about developers developing what we need rather than what they want. And that's really how it shifts. And once we start to do that and we lay down the law, and they come to the table with this baseline of what we need, that's when we'll start to see significant differences in the city of Hoboken.
Michael, realistically, in a Russo administration within the first year or two, what can we do about the waterfront? I know there's always been some chatter about, well, maybe a new municipal pool or other amenities that could help not just residents, but certainly it could become maybe a touristy destination in the sense,
Absolutely.
like we see, for example, in nearby Weehawken, the Weehawken town pool obviously does get out of towners to come in, certainly during the summer months. I mean, listen, it's still unseasonably warm right now in early October. Who would have thought it? But regardless of that, what's realistic on the waterfront in a Russo administration when it comes to additional services? Again, a pool. I'm not saying, I don't know, a new amphitheater or something. I don't know. But what's realistic in a Russo administration about maybe doing something at the waterfront that can appeal to not just residents, but out of towners to come into Hoboken and subsequently spend money in Hoboken?
Yeah, so our waterfront is the jewel, right? And utilizing an asset that is not currently there, which is Pier B. Pier B, we still have the pilings in the water, right? And the Army Corps of Engineers allows us to build on those old piling sites. I'd like to rebuild Pier B for a brand new aquatic center in the city of Hoboken. And we've already started within the campaign, we've already started talking about how we're going to do that and how we're going to fund that. So it's not just a municipal pool that's there, it's an entire aquatic center. And on that same parcel of land, we're talking about building an event space that we could house weddings, we could house these small mini conventions, right? And that asset in the city of Hoboken will help to pay the debt service to build the municipal complex year over year. And that's something that no one, and when I say no one in this campaign is talking about. We are the only campaign who's talking about how we increase our recreational program to include a municipal swimming complex and a municipal aquatic center in the city of Hoboken while still being able to pay for that. Now, again, that's not going to happen in a year, right? It's definitely going to take some time. But if you don't have this big, bold vision of what you can accomplish and put some real thought and some real assets behind it, you're never going to achieve what the municipality needs. If it wasn't for some really fearless leaders in the 1990s, right? And this was a collaborative effort with a Democratic mayor, a Republican governor, and advocacy groups across the city of Hoboken, we would not have what we currently have in the forms of our waterfront. Our waterfront is there because in 6 years in that administration, they built that entire waterfront because they had a clear vision. They knew that they could accomplish it, and they figured out how they could pay for it so that the taxpayers didn't foot the bill solely. And that's the same type of a Russo administration that you'll see when I take the office in January.
Michael, another issue about public safety, I know that's really on the minds of so many residents. I see it again on Instagram, so much social media chatter, is e-bikes and the dangers that e-bikes pose to residents on a consistent basis. Also sort of a public health issue, like rats, for example, not some of the rats working at town hall on Washington Street, but like real rodents, like a public health hazard for seniors and for kids. Let's just talk to e-bikes first. Realistically, again, I get it. Even after the pandemic, people have become very dependent on food services, and people maybe don't want to go out as much. They want to order food. That's great. We want to keep businesses running. But at the end of the day, some of these e-bikes, Michael, are becoming dangerous for our seniors, for moms that want to just take their kids out on a stroller. I see it firsthand when I'm driving on Washington Street. It seems like it's the wild, wild west out here. What is a realistic way to enforce this and at the same time hold some of these e-bikers or the companies that hire them accountable?
Yep. Yeah. So this is, again, a very clear plan that I put forward specific to e-bikes. One is, if you look in Hoboken now, you may see 15, 20, 30 e-bikes all gathered on one corner in the city of Hoboken. The first thing we need to do is delineate space for a certain number of e-bikes per block. Whether that's 3, whether that's 5, don't know yet, but we'll figure that out, right? No more than 5 on a block. You're on an e-bike and you're delivering across the city of Hoboken. You don't necessarily have to stay outside the one establishment that you think you get most of your orders from. you could be a couple of blocks away and still get to pick that up and still get to your destination pretty quickly, especially with the e-bikes. So that's first and foremost. Second, we need to make sure we enforce our test and vest law. I was very happy to be one of the sponsors on that law to make sure that all these e-bike drivers in the city are wearing a vest so that they could be seen. They have a registration number on that vest so that they could be identified, that God forbid something does happen, we know what happens, right? And then we're making sure that our police department, going back to our earlier conversation about public safety, on day one, our police department is going to have a very clear directive to make sure that anyone who's breaking the law when it comes to our e-bike riders in the city of Hoboken, they're being ticketed. And if they're continuously offenders in the city of Hoboken, well, then we'll impound that vehicle. We'll take that bike, right? And we need to make sure that we're being as aggressive as possible because they are that aggressive and they are causing some fear amongst our parents. They're causing some fear amongst our senior citizens, and they're most certainly causing some fear amongst our kids. So we need to make sure we're being just as aggressive in making sure they're not doing those things. And that's something that, again, day one, that directive goes out.
All right, well said. Michael, during this race, candidates talk about lowering taxes, right? Whether it's property taxes, trying to have a more fiscally responsible budget in Hoboken. We've heard the chatter, we've heard the narratives, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes residents get concerned about, well, candidates talk about, lowering taxes, but maybe, subconsciously maybe raising fees here to sort of offset that. What can you tell our residents tonight about those fears? Because again, candidates say that all the time. I'm the one that's going to lower your taxes, but it doesn't mean that, well, to offset that, we might have to raise fees here, and that's how we kind of work around that. What can you tell residents tonight about what your campaign represents as opposed to your opponents?
Yeah, again, it's looking at the city in its entirety, finding out exactly what we need rather than what we're trying to achieve currently. The city of Hoboken should not be a massive for-profit business. We should be breaking even at best. We should be paying for the services that we're providing, and we should not worry about these massive surpluses that we've tried to generate all across the years. We want to have a healthy surplus to make sure that we're fiscally sound. But at the end of the day, we don't need to overcharge our residents year in, year out. And what you've seen is not only an increase in taxes through the years, but you've also seen those same increases in fees. And we've gotten really creative to incorporate some new fees, right? We have the Hoboken Business Alliance, which is a fee on top of your taxes. We have increased fees in our recreation department. We have increased parking fees. We have increased taxes. We continue to increase and increase and increase. And nobody's ever talking about how we streamline government. Nobody's ever talking about how we look at it in its entirety and from a holistic perspective. And we need to make sure that our residents are getting the services that they need, but that they're not paying an overpriced amount for those services. And there's a lot of things that we really need to look at.
Folks, if you're just joining us live right now at 6:45 here on the East Coast, we're about to wrap up here with Hoboken mayoral candidate, Dr. Michael Russo. He's been very generous with his time tonight here on the show. Obviously, it's less than 30 days to go. Michael, we've got to know you, the candidate, your policies, where you stand, but a quick lightning round to get to know Michael Russo, the guy, the dad. So quick lightning round here. It's important for our residents to get to know the candidates in more sort of a laid-back setting. So here we go. Favorite MLB team and favorite player?
Los Angeles Dodgers, Ohtani. Got to be.
Okay, Dodgers fan. Okay. Now, does this go back
my dad was an old Brooklyn fan.
Does it go back to Brooklyn Dodgers?
My dad was an old Brooklyn fan, so I started rooting for the Dodgers because my dad was a Dodger fan when I was a little kid. And of course, both my brothers are Yankee fans, so last year was really fun.
Oh, sure. I can imagine. Listen, Ohtani is really that generational talent with what he's doing, certainly. Listen, it'd be nice to see them get rid of Philadelphia. Anytime that any Philadelphia sports team loses, it's a great day in America. It's as simple as that.
I'm with you.
Favorite NFL team?
Washington Commanders.
Interesting. Okay, and where does that come from, and what's your favorite player?
I mean, it's got to be Daniels at this point, right? He's a phenom. But most of my friends growing up were Dallas Cowboy fans, right? Yep. So
right there you go.
Had to be contrary to my buddies, right? So I was a Washington fan.
Okay. Are you a fan of maybe just going back to the original name? I know it's caused a lot of chatter online, and
Yeah,
you know.
well, listen, I'm a fan of the team, right? So the name doesn't really matter to me. I'm a loyal guy when it comes to my sports teams. But what I would say is I do love the logo, right? If they're not going to change the name of the team, I wouldn't mind bringing the logo back, because that logo, that chief was
Sure.
that was a point of pride, right,
Yeah.
for Native Americans in this country. The logo, at the very least, not necessarily the name. So I would love to see the logo being incorporated somewhere, even if it's on some throwback jerseys or helmets, rather, and just kind of incorporating it again, so we could bring some of that pride back to our Native Americans in this country.
And I got to tell you, I think for a team that's gone through a renaissance like Washington, I mean, I think there is chatter about them getting a new ballpark down by the waterfront near where the Nationals play. I've been to FedEx Field. I mean, my God. I mean, I don't say it just as a Cowboy fan, because, I mean, we have the best stadium in North America. But my God, Michael, sometimes you're worried about going to FedEx Field, man. It's like, oh, I don't know. It's only 25 years old, but it makes you wonder about, like who was constructing this, man. It kind of makes you a little fearful, right?
This is where I get aged a little bit here, right? Like, so before I was married and before my 4 children, I actually had season tickets down at FedEx when they were first open. And, those first couple of years were great. Brand new stadium, everybody's excited, but really went downhill really quickly. And I haven't been there in a while, but I'm very hopeful that they do get a new stadium.
I mean, listen, and especially with the World Cup coming next year, you would think that the capital city of the country would have at least a group play, and they're not going to. And it's I think it's tragic, but apparently chatter is that by 2029, the Nationals will have a neighbor there, obviously a brand new building right on the Potomac, and I think that would be, to be honest, with a team. Again, I'm a Cowboy fan, but I can call balls and strikes fairly. Washington is one of those historic franchises back in 1933. Absolutely. If I'm not mistaken. Certainly there's a lot of tradition and heritage there with Washington. Yeah. If anyone deserves a new ballpark, I would argue it's one of the classical teams in the NFL. NBA and NHL.
Not a huge NBA fan, but I probably root for the Knicks more than anything.
Okay.
Don't really have any specific players that I would say were my favorite players, but NHL, again, not a huge hockey fan, but I love going to watch hockey live. But I do root for the Devils. Same here.
Going to watch hockey live is still one of the most affordable things you can do, especially as a family. Speaking of family and your kids, DC or Marvel?
That's a good question, because I think they're all a little different, right? So I would say I would have to stay neutral on that one, right? My oldest daughter, who's now 14 in high school, wants nothing to do with it. But my 2 boys, Jack and Michael, they're all over the place. So I would stay neutral on DC and Marvel just because of them.
Okay. Now, I don't want to get you in trouble with this one, but favorite cuisine and favorite restaurant in Hoboken to dine at?
This one is, I hate doing this, especially when it comes to Hoboken restaurants. But I'm going to have to say my favorite restaurant in Hoboken is Il Tavolo. And I'll tell you why. Frankie Boy, the owner there, is someone who I've known my whole life. And his family and my family come from the same region in Italy. And when he cooks, it brings back memories of both my grandparents, my dad's parents. So that is a very nostalgic restaurant for me. Every time I go there, he's an amazing chef. Even the chefs that he has trained pick up so many things from him. So Frankie Boy's a great cook, and I love his restaurant. Okay. So Italian food is my go-to.
Okay, last one. What is one thing that residents don't know about Michael Russo that he's never really talked about? Hobby, favorite music, favorite artist. What don't we know about Michael Russo?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there's not much that people don't know about me. I would say one of the things that most people don't know a lot about is my musical tastes. So I'm a massive dancehall reggae fan.
Okay.
And my friends, down in college would go through my music collection, and it would range from Frank Sinatra to Buju Banton, right? Like, so they would always ask me, how'd that get in there, right? But yeah, I'm a big dancehall reggae fan. It's something that a lot of people don't know about, but more and more people are starting to see it because I've been a little bit more active with what Hoboken sounds like in Hoboken. It's a nonprofit in Hoboken that does a lot for local talent on the hip hop scene. So it's something that I'm really into.
Michael, I appreciate your time. Obviously, real quick, social media handles, any websites and links our residents should know about?
Yeah, so Russo for Hoboken, we shifted the website, so russoforhoboken.com. Go check it out. All of our policies are up there. Any questions you ever have, my cell phone number is there. I took that one right out of Brian Stack's playbook. I give out my personal cell. It's my only number. By all means, reach out to me whenever you need to. And then all my social media handles are either Dr. Michael Russo NJ at each of them, or Michael Russo NJ. So you can find me on all the social channels.
Michael, I appreciate your faith in my brand of independent journalism. I appreciate coming out and having a great conversation about your candidacy. I feel fairly certain you'll get across the finish line on November, and you'll be in that runoff coming up in December. We'll talk to you during the campaign trail, obviously. I think it'd be good to catch the Cowboy-Redskin game in a few weeks. I know they face off with each other. So Sunday, if you could get away for a couple hours from campaign, we should catch the game somewhere in Hoboken. But I appreciate coming on. I appreciate your faith in my brand of journalism. I'll give you the last word tonight here on Real Talk.
Yeah, again, please, everybody who's watching, come out, support Team Russo. You know, we didn't even get to talk about the candidates that I'm running with. Some young, vibrant faces that are in Hoboken who are bringing real different solutions to the city of Hoboken. It's not the same old same kind of bubble where people are just talking about the same thing. So really proud of the team that has chosen me and that I have chosen. And we're really looking forward to serving the city and the residents in the city of Hoboken. So hopefully everybody will come out and support Team Russo. I really appreciate it.
Folks, you have options on November the 4th. One of them, my guest tonight, Dr. Michael Russo, running for mayor in the Mouse Square city of Hoboken. Michael, we'll talk to you again soon. Obviously, let's go Cowboys. We'll see obviously when Washington comes to town in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But
Sounds good.
Best of luck on the campaign trail, brother. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Fernando. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Folks, good stuff there. Michael Russo, candidate for mayor in the city of Hoboken. Good stuff there. And obviously during this election cycle, folks, I've been doing my best to talk to candidates, to those that want to come on this show and have a conversation and answer the tough questions. It's as simple as that. That's what you get on this program, folks. Candidates coming up here talking about the issues that matter to Hoboken residents. And I've been consistent on this show, folks. And there are a lot of people that will watch this program and say, well, you know, Fernando's this, Fernando. No, folks, what I am is fair. What I am is a guy that calls balls and strikes. Okay? There's a reason why independent journalism is growing in New Jersey. Okay? There's a reason why my podcast continues to do well. More on that later as we talk about traffic on this show. But folks, all politics is local. And at the end of the day, I've been consistent on this program. Better than anybody out there. To talk about the issues that matter to Hoboken residents. It's as simple as that. To talk about the issues. And listen, I've gone after the leadership in Hoboken plenty of times. It's not about pronouns. It's not about all this woke bullshit in Hoboken about repainting crosswalks and coddling the alphabet mob and coddling mentally ill people, you know, trans people, right? It's about real issues. It's about how are people going to afford to be able to live in Hoboken? How are people going to be able to afford to park? And for lifelong residents that are seeing more and more high-cost rentals going up, residents have to make a decision. And for the last 8 years in Hoboken, folks, we have to be consistent about this. We have to be fair. Okay? For the last 8 years, under Ravi Bala, Hoboken's become a disaster. Now, it doesn't help when he's enabled by the Lollipop Guild. You know, the charisma vacuum that is Jim Doyle. Okay, Mr. Photogenic over there, you know, Phil Cohen. Okay, the guy who, you know, who's never met you know, an alcoholic beverage he's never liked, Joe Quintero, or the prom queen, Emily Jabor, who panders incessantly. And I'm sure all the moms in Hoboken, all the stay-at-home moms that she loves to cater to or pander to, I'm sure they're, you know, a box of wine in already tonight, knowing that I'm interviewing Mike Russo. But folks, Hoboken is in trouble. Hoboken needs new leadership. You have choices on November the 4th, folks. It's as simple as that. You have them. I've been talking to them during this election cycle. Now, are there residents in Hoboken or throughout Hudson County that watch this show and object to my southern? Cool, object. I always say it all the time. Here's a novel idea. Start a podcast and start talking to elected officials. It's not just enough, folks, to, I don't know, bitch and moan on social media. Do something about it. Get involved. Talk to candidates. That's what matters during this election cycle. And that's what I've been doing. Talking to candidates. Asking the tough questions. Making sure that we talk about real issues, not the woke bullshit that a lot of residents in Hoboken seem to fixate on. Because, folks, here's a reality check for everyone in Hoboken. Yes, it's a center-left city. No question about that. But it's not as progressive and woke as people think, thank the Lord. Okay? And yes, while there are voters in Hoboken that helped get Katie Brennan and Ravi Bala across the finish line during the primary in June this year to subsequently and unfortunately become the next assemblyman and assemblywoman in the 32nd Legislative District, folks, Hoboken is in this woke epicenter like we see next door in Jersey City or parts of Jersey City. Okay? Hoboken's still a center-left city where residents care about, hey, working class values, not the woke bullshit, but real working class kitchen table issues. And that's what this show's been talking about. So don't get it twisted by some out there that will say, well, we can't trust podcasters or independent media. No, folks, if there's ever a time to trust independent media, it's right now. Because people like Fernando Uribe are the ones talking about the issues that matter. Okay? I'm not pandering to a bunch of cat ladies and stay-at-home moms who the toughest decision of the day is, oh, should I charge, my next round of Starbucks to my husband's credit card? No, folks. Okay? This show appeals to regular people that care about real-world issues. And again, all politics is local, and that's why Hoboken, Jersey City, Secaucus, Kearney, Guttenberg, these mayoral races, they matter because they're shaping the way that Hudson County is looking for residents. And again, I appreciate Michael Russo being on the show tonight, answering tough questions. I can't say the same for other candidates in the field. I'm not going to mention them by name. That's why candidates have come on this show. That's why, folks, that's why candidates trust this program. Much of the chagrin of a lot of progressives and the social justice clowns and the woke fools and the alphabet mob in Hudson County that can't stand me. Trust me, I can't stand you either. But I'm here to talk about the issues that matter to regular people, not the woke bullshit that, you all blow a load in your pants about. No, I'm talking about real world shit. That's the difference between you and I. I'm the adult in the room. Okay? And that's why these issues matter, folks, now more than ever, with less than 30 days to go, especially in municipal races. So if you missed any part of tonight's broadcast, again, like, comment, and share. We appreciate you tuning into the replay. Tell your neighbors about it. Tell your colleagues about it. Tell every Hoboken voter that you know what a productive conversation it was tonight with Michael Russo, who I would argue is a great choice for mayor in this mayoral cycle in the city of Hoboken. Folks, it's 7 o'clock here right on the dot. And again, I appreciate you tuning in here to Real Talk, folks, here on the broadcast. As you can see, folks, we are rocking pink. It is October. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, one of my favorite months of the year. Not just because of raising awareness for breast cancer. Of course, October, if you know me, Halloween is my favorite holiday. So I'm looking forward to Halloween at the end of this month. But more importantly, folks, throughout the month of October, we'll continue wearing pink here on the program. We'll continue rocking pink throughout every broadcast to raise awareness for the American Cancer Society and making strides against breast cancer. That's right, folks. You know what time it is. It's time for final thoughts. And folks, talked about it last week, but I think it bears repeating. One of the reasons that regular New Jersey residents are losing faith in our establishment media is because, well, multiple reasons. They're either not believable or credible, or they pretty much provide cover for one political party for as long as I can remember. And one of the guiltiest parties, of course, is behind me, is Uncle Dave, David Cruz. But here's what's really funny, because I don't make it a point to watch his show regularly. I even forget it's on. But it's brought to my attention because people will be like, Fernando, check out what Uncle Dave said this week. And normally my response is, well, I'll get to it if I can. You know, I don't want to lose brain cells by watching Uncle Dave talk. But occasionally I might watch it within a few minutes or by the end of the day. But his recent edition of Chatbox really made me laugh, folks. We'll start with the intro here because, folks, this has to make you laugh right here. So let's just go to that.
Major funding for Chatbox with David Cruz is provided by the members of the New Jersey Education Association, making public schools great for every child.
So wait a second. So membership dues from the NJEA, right, are going to pay for mediocre journalism. So for all the teachers out there that are tuning in tonight, just know that obviously, aside from funding a horrendous candidate in Sean Spiller, where I think over $40 million of your membership dues for teachers, administrators, clerks, administrative assistants, you name it, throughout all 21 counties, throughout all 500 school districts in New Jersey, that when you get paid every 2 weeks and you look at your pay stub, know that your membership dues are going to fund garbage like this. But let's continue.
Promotional support for Chatbox
Wait for this one.
with David Cruz is provided by Insider NJ, a political intelligence network dedicated to New Jersey political news.
So wait a second. A political intelligence network. Folks, when I think of the word intelligence, I'm sorry, Insider NJ doesn't come to mind. I'm sorry. I mean, that's the truth. Now, don't take my word for it. Take it by reading the garbage content you see on there. And it starts with, Maxie Pizarro, who, hey, you got to give it to him. Look at Max working during this election cycle. Like Max Pizarro actually leaving his house. Like this lazy mother effer actually left his house to do real work. I mean, folks, mira eso. Because we all know Max doesn't work. He is one of the laziest bastards out there in journalism. And that's saying something because there's competition there. But folks, when I think of intelligence and a network, I never think of Insider NJ. And folks, there's obviously the facts are on my side because guess who they portray out there? Guess who they continue to give a platform to? Lazy bastards like Max Pizarro, right? Propagandists like Sleepy Al Steinberg, who I get, it's 7:05. He's sleeping. There's no way that Sleepy Al is awake at this hour with his propaganda. Or scrawny little women, like little JJ Lassiter. Well, when was the last time this little woman actually published a column or something of substance? Not the sob story about, this is how long I've been clean or this is how long I've been. Folks, no one cares. Nobody cares, least of all myself. I don't care about the sob stories. I really don't. Call me whatever you want. Just call me real. Okay? But these are the people that Insider J gives a platform to. The only person I can have even an ounce of respect for is Fred Snowflake. And I love Fred. And by the way, Fred, let's go Cowboys after that great win yesterday by my Dallas Cowboys. Being there live yesterday was nice. But folks, here's what's interesting. Okay? Fred Snowflake's a real journalist. And I can respect that about Fred Snowflake. Now, he goes up and down the state because we all know Max is too lazy to. I can't even imagine what the mileage is on his car or the tolls or whatever his Easy Pass looks like. But I can respect Fred Snowflake. He tries to call balls and strikes. I don't always agree with his columns or his takes, but I respect Fred Snowflake. Okay? But when you consistently put out bad content, like John Van Vliet, okay, or Bob Hennelly, or some of the other guest contributors, or some of these horrible powerless that you're enabling awful human beings. Take your pick, folks. Really? A political intelligence network.
Insider NJ is committed to giving serious political players an interactive form.
So wait a minute. Serious political players. So wait a minute. So when Max Pizarro allows op-eds from clowns like Amy Torres, we all know Amy Torres, right? She's the executive director of the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. or other like left-wing propagandists, like Patricia Campos Medina, who, by the way, I mean, listen, it must be really nice for the general manager, Peter Nelly, for the quid pro quo scenario of like, oh, give us money and we'll feature your show, a shitty podcast that nobody ever watched, or her shitty op-eds. Like, how is that even remotely ethical? Can someone explain it to me? Can someone explain to me how it's ethical to take money and then just feature someone like that where, I mean, really? Was that all I needed to do when I worked at Insider Energy? Just give you money and just you'll publish whatever I want instead of me having to ask you to do that? Really? Is that all it took? Are we that desperate for money over there at Insider NJ? Really? Let's continue.
Forum for ideas, discussion, and insight. Online at insidernj.com.
What insight? Folks, do you ever find yourself, when someone sends you a column from Insider NJ, do you ever find yourself getting dumber? It's like listening to Kamala Harris talk. It's like listening to like Patricia Campos Medina talk, or Corin Frankfurt, or Lauren Albrecht, or a list of like just useless women, Jay Lasseter in New Jersey media or activism or advocacy. Like, I find myself getting dumber just listening or reading some of the content. So whatever insight Insider NJ claims to put out there, I have yet to see it, but I mean, I don't know. What do I know? I just have eyes and ears. But folks, one of the interesting things about this week was the way that Uncle Dave went about. You could tell like he was seething. Like you could just tell the disdain in his voice and his demeanor and his body language when it came to talking to Republican gubernatorial nominee Jack Ciattarelli, who's been very clear about policies that New Jersey residents need. But don't tell it to Uncle Dave. You could just tell the disdain in his face when he's asking questions. I'll give you an example.
Of Information Act's fault. Listen, a shutdown is unfortunate. Let's hope that this is a negotiation.
The governor is going to make that kind of change. Electrical bill a month.
Partisan group to
Ridiculous $200 a month that it used to be. Can you really tell people that the governor is going to make that kind of change?
You bet I can. I'll tell you how in a second. Let me tell you how.
And mind you, never mind la cara de come mierda que tiene David Cruz. I mean, that's just, you're born with that. You can't help that. I get it. Not very photogenic. You can't do anything about that at your age, Dave. Again, you're in your late 80s. I get it. You obviously have a face for radio. But the point is that you could just tell the condescension in Uncle Dave's voice. Because for years, he could have grilled the governor on this. He could have grilled legislators that he's had on his show consistently. But again, that would require, wait for it, that would require Uncle Dave to practice and have that pesky four-syllable word that he struggles with, among other words he struggles with, integrity. Let's continue.
I can't. By declaring a state of emergency to freeze electricity rates at an all-time high rate. Why would we freeze them here? We want them back here. And you have 77 sitting Democratic legislators, 52 of which are on the ballot this year, and not one of them has endorsed that illegitimate plan put forth by my opponent that even the governor has said on TV, I don't think you can do that. Here's how we do it, David. We pull out a Reggie. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative is a carbon tax policy that has failed New Jersey. Murphy put us in. 7.5 years later, electricity is no less expensive, the air is no cleaner, and $500 million a year is going to other states for their grid, not ours.
And again, you would think that Uncle Dave would know about this. I mean, the only Reggie this fool knows about is Reggie Miller, possibly. I mean, as a Knick fan, I'm assuming that's the only Reggie he knows, but more on Jack in a moment. Let's continue.
The Democratic governor of Pennsylvania is not in Reggie. We won't be either. On day one of my administration, I could save $500 million a year for ratepayers, for homeowners, tenants, and businesses by pulling out of Reggie. It's a failed carbon tax policy.
So pulling out of Reggie is going to take my rate down back to what
Absolutely.
It used to be?
There'll be less charges on your bill. And in addition to that, I've got to repurpose the 6 plants that Phil Murphy shut down. I've got to accelerate solar on the rooftops of all this warehousing across the state.
Folks, did you notice Uncle Dave's face? Like, esa cara como mierda, like, oh shit, like I'm hearing facts here. I'm hearing sound policies. It's like you could see Uncle Dave's brain melting because, oh my God, holy shit, I'm actually hearing information that's useful. right? Not propaganda that you see Uncle Dave perpetuating consistently, on his show on a regular basis. But let's continue with Jack.
Which is prime real estate. Talk to any solar developer about what Murphy's DEP does to slow that down. I want to expand our nuclear capability in South Jersey. I want to build 3 or 4 more new natural gas fired electricity generation plants. I want to lift the moratorium on the existing plants, and we can be an exporter once again. I mean, when Phil Murphy took office, we were an importer. We were an exporter of electricity. Today, we have to import it, buying it through exchanges, competing with a whole bunch of other states, and that's the why electricity is through the roof. To my opponent blaming that on the president is just another blatant lie in this campaign. It's all at the hands and the feet of the current administration.
To fire.
Let me make one thing perfectly clear. While he was shutting down everything that was producing electricity, he bet it all on wind. And 7.5 years later, show me a single wind turbine off the Jersey Shore.
Uh-oh. Folks, you see the smoke coming out of Uncle Dave's head? Uh-oh. That's called critical thinking. He's not used to doing that, but.
Producing electricity. It's been a failure. His entire energy policy has been a failure, and right now New Jerseyans are paying through the nose.
So you talk about nuclear and getting some of these plants that were shuttered back online. Is that going to require some kind of regulatory changes?
Well, let's move on a little bit here. Obviously, we talked a little environmental here, but let's move on to something that really I think is pretty egregious about Uncle Dave, but let's continue here.
Do you, for instance, when you're talking about budget cutting and budget right-sizing, do you keep programs like Stay NJ and Anchor?
I want to combine them. We need property tax relief, particularly for our seniors. But I like programs that are fair and easy to administrate. There's one aspect of one of those programs you just rattled off that to me, I mean, we're going to send a property tax rebate check to people that are making $500,000 a year. I mean, I know their property taxes are high, and I'm not condemning them for earning that kind of money, but we've got a whole lot of other people that are struggling. I think we should point the money mostly to the people who are struggling the most. But if we freeze property taxes for everyone once they hit age 70, if we make all retirement income tax-free the way it is in Pennsylvania, if we allow you to deduct 100% of your New Jersey property taxes on your New Jersey tax return, if we cap property taxes at 1% of the assessed value of the home for first-time home buyers, we can help a whole lot of people. And with a new school funding formula, we can help all those people in the middle too by lowering their property tax, which is exactly what I'll work like hell to do.
All right, let's move on to public safety. You have a lieutenant governor who's in law enforcement, or a lieutenant governor candidate who's in law enforcement, and you talk a lot about taking the handcuffs off of our cops. What does that mean exactly?
Well, again, folks, it's amazing to me that a guy in his late 80s needs someone to break down a term as simple as that. Now, again, I get it. Uncle Dave, when it comes to public safety, I get maybe he isn't used to it. He lives in a shithole part of the south side of Jersey City. So maybe he doesn't see police, patrols on a regular basis. Maybe he doesn't see cops walking the beat there on the south side and that shithole that he lives in. I get it. So maybe this is stuff that's oblivious to Uncle Dave. But David, again, all kidding around aside, it's a very easy perspective. What we have seen in New Jersey, what we've seen is horrible bail reform, shitty policy like cash bail that this attorney general and his predecessor were all in favor of. And we've seen the dangers of cash bail. We've seen what it's done to cities across this country and municipalities throughout New Jersey. So the idea that you think, again, you're very limited, right? Because you don't have the time you used to producing shows at Gateway Center. You would think you would talk about, or at least phrase questions in a way that's more relatable to everyday residents. We know what's happening in New Jersey. We know that police officers are already handcuffed, with New Jersey, A, being a sanctuary state, B, the shitty policy that is cash bail. Like, again, folks, it makes you wonder when people lose faith in establishment media. It's when you have shitty interviewers like Uncle Dave here, basically insulting the intelligence of his audience. Like, I almost feel dumber having to listen to this.
Well, first of all, what it means is not having an immigrant trust directive. So no town in our state will be a sanctuary city, will not be a sanctuary state. I believe that only encourages illegal immigration. And it does handcuff our police in a number of different ways, one of which is the administration of warrants. And the second thing is, if any mayor feels that to keep his or her community safe, they want their local PD to work in partnership with a federal agency, I don't think I should take that right away from them. But it also means getting rid of reforming bail reform. Cashless bail has created a professional criminal who's learned how to game the system. And talk to your local police. Arrest, release, repeat is real.
What would you change about that?
Nonviolent crime is spiking. We have car thefts, we have break-ins, flash mobs on the Jersey Shore and at our malls. Did you see what happened in Secaucus 4 weeks ago? Total lack of regard for law and order, total lack of respect for law enforcement.
But you're kind of conflating a couple of things there. You're talking about bail reform, and then you talk about kids wilding in their cars. Let me ask you about...
No, David, he's not conflating anything. What he's talking about is like there's just this aura of lawlessness that many Democrats in Trenton have been happy to coddle, whether it's, again, establishing New Jersey as a sanctuary state, whether it's preventing ICE from going into certain communities and getting rid of dangerous illegals. Again, folks, one of the things that's infuriating about David Cruz, and again, we have to be intellectually honest here, he's not being that. He just isn't. There's just an era and an aura of lawlessness that has been enabled in this state, especially by the Attorney General here. But never you would think that Uncle Dave would ever grill Matt Plackett about that. No, but he would rather be combative with a gubernatorial candidate. Now let's see if he does that with the Democrat Party candidate whenever she decides to go on chat box with Uncle Dave. But again, folks, there's no conflating. But good for Jack for answering the question properly.
Bail reform, what would you change?
David, you asked me, how do we take the handcuffs off?
Yeah.
First of all, we have to create an environment in which we respect law and order and respect law enforcement. But in terms of taking the handcuffs...
What are you talking about? Why are you shaking your head for? Why are you nodding in agreement? You're the first idiot 5 years ago that was more than happy seeing people protesting and marching for a career criminal like George Floyd 5 years ago when we were supposed to be home, locked down in COVID. But if you were out there looting and rioting in support of a career criminal like George Floyd, oh, that's cool. That's fine. But here somehow, I can sense the resistance in you, Dave. It's disingenuous.
Off, I don't have a problem with no-knock warrants. I don't have a problem with canines for crowd control. I don't have a problem necessarily with high-speed chases. We're not getting rid of qualified immunity, which my opponent voted yes on. These are all the things that make the job of local law enforcement harder. Why would we do that? As I go around the state of New Jersey, people want safe communities. The way to do that is by taking these handcuffs off. I just gave you 4, and let them do their job. They're trained professionals.
What about the other side of that from communities that have been over-policed? And you, for instance, are being against or being for restrictions on public access to internal affairs records and being against community reform boards.
David, if you did something...
So wait a second. So concerns about communities have been over-policed? David, I mean, you live in a shithole part of Jersey City. I mean, how is that over-policed? I mean, do you want me to name all the other shitholes in New Jersey? Patterson, New Brunswick, Trenton, Camden, Atlantic City, Newark. Really? You're concerned about communities that are over-policed? What? They're not policed enough. You think that's over-policing? My God, David. Ay, Dios mío, bro. ¿Qué come mierda David Cruz? I mean, it never ceases to amaze me that this guy actually says some of the stuff he says out loud. But let's continue. Actually, it gets really funny coming up.
Seriously wrong at your place of business where you're employed. Do you think it's fair that your employer make that your personnel records public going forward or backward? These are human resource issues. Now, listen, are there bad cops? There's bad CPAs. There's bad
Listen,
doctors.
I'm a bad broadcaster, but I'm not putting cuffs on people.
Folks, if there's ever been a truer statement, yes, David, we know you're a bad broadcaster. You don't have to come out and say it. I mean, your episode's 4 years now. Tell us that. I mean, I'm glad you have some accountability. I'm glad you have some transparency. We all know you're a bad broadcaster, Dave. And you're being kind. I think you're a shitty broadcaster. But again, you have yourself to blame, nobody else. So when you're up in arms or indignant about whether or not Trenton is funding public broadcasting. What a disservice to journalism and transparency. No, David, when you produce shitty journalism, nobody wants to fund that. Least of all me. I don't want my tax dollars going to shitty journalism, starting with your show.
Hey, here's the one thing that those...
And by the way, kudos to Jack taking the high road. I would have eviscerated this idiot. Be like, oh, I'm glad you said the part out loud that we've all known for years, because I would have said that. But again, credit to Jack Ciattarelli for taking the high road. I would not have done that with Uncle Dave.
To kind of go down this road, never want to seem to mention, every single law enforcement officer in this state has a body camera on that records everything.
Yes.
Everything. And anyone who's been violated is entitled to that video becoming public. That's good enough for me.
What's so hard?
But if there is, for some reason, a guy, they don't always put on their cameras, or something happens to it.
No, David, they do, David, and there's harsh repercussions for not doing that. The Attorney General has been very clear about it. But again, Uncle Dave would just rather be combative than talk about issues. Folks, you get the point here. Okay? Now, here's an even better one here. I think here's a good one here, I think, at the end.
Parameters are now, David,
Yep.
all I will tell you is that everything is going to be evaluated. Taxpayer dollar subsidized.
The parameters that you would like to see from a successor to NJPBS, and do you have anyone in mind?
David, if the next governor, Governor Ciattarelli, is going to agree to subsidize PBS, and I'm not saying that I am, because there's some difficult decisions we need to make, but if I were, I'd prefer to see a PBS that's broadcasting New Jersey news and not necessarily the BBC or anything outside the United States.
Yeah, how about this one, Dave? How about just the fact of like having NJPBS and NJ Spotlight News produce news, not bullshit opinion journalism, which, again, you and a lot of people over there seem to be champions of. To say nothing of the fact, again, that you're being coddled and sponsored by two propagandist wings, whether it's the NJEA or Insider NJ. But let's continue.
We're using taxpayer dollars here. I think that's a reasonable conversation and a reasonable request.
Well, I'm not even talking about subsidizing it, which didn't occur until like 4 years ago. And it's not even about NJPBS.
No, it's not about saving my ass because I'll be unemployed next summer. But no, continue.
It's about what's next.
What's next is hopefully Uncle Dave is set out to pasture. Again, the dinosaur. Hopefully the meteor is coming. We can be rid of you. Because Dave, again, you've done quite a disservice to us. You're supposed to fill the shoes of Michael Aaron, the dean, the GOAT of journalism in New Jersey. And you've come incredibly short of that. You need to own that.
The state is going to set the parameters for a public broadcaster. Are you cool with what the parameters are now? Or are you going to...
Yeah, I'm not familiar with what the parameters are now, David.
Yep.
All I will tell you is that everything is going to be evaluated. But one thing I will tell you about the next budgets, in the last 24 months, we've had more than $2 billion in pet pork projects here in New Jersey. State government under Governor Ciattarelli is not going to be paying for French art museums or turf fields in anybody's backyard. We're not doing that anymore.
And that's great, folks. And that's what you want to hear from a candidate. Or providing money for ridiculous woke causes in New Jersey, or coddling organizations that get grants from Trenton, that get state funding. That's called accountability. It's as simple as that, folks. So when Uncle Dave and other establishment media personalities or characters in this saga want to talk about, well, Republicans are evil because Republicans wanted to fund media and transparency. No, they don't, David. Look no further than Democrats in the legislature who've controlled it for over 20 years. And guess what? Whether it's you and other propagandists masquerading as journalists over the years, whether it's Tom Moran, who's thankfully unemployed from the Star-Ledger, and others, all you've done is provide cover for the Democrat Party for years. And even Democrats got tired of it because they saw how blatantly dishonest and disingenuous left-wingers like you are. You need to own that, David. Okay? You're a grown-ass man, bro. You're a guy in your late 80s. Okay? You need to own this. It seems like you're struggling to do that. You need to do better. As I've said before, there's a reason why people's faith in the establishment media is eroding, and there's a reason why trust in independent media is growing. Like, for example, Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. Yeah, people trust me, David, a hell of a lot more than they've been trusting you. And that's not just an opinion. That's fact. When it comes to facts, you struggle with that quite mightily. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, a special comment tonight, and from one useless journalist to a guy who's not even really a journalist, but a professional agitator. Let's talk about Leonard Filipowski. Now, I'm not going to go by the ridiculous gimmick name, okay, that he insists everyone refer to him as. No, folks. Now, since December of 2023, Leonard Filipowski has been a nuisance here in Hudson County. Not just to Union City Mayor and State Senator Brian Stack, but also to former Governor Jim McGreevey and regular everyday residents. Because somehow Leonard believes that he can go anywhere, say anything, without repercussions. Leonard, yes, freedom of speech exists. That hasn't gone away. But it doesn't mean that there's freedom from consequences by you being an asshole to people. There's a profound difference. But it's not even so much about his antics, which are just childish. I mean, even infantile at this point. But it's the clowns he surrounds himself with. Okay? Here's Leonard shortly before yesterday's Hispanic Day Parade in North Hudson with some guy who looks like, I don't know, some reject from Duck Duck Dynasty from the early 2010s. What's his Northern Exposure, Indecent Exposure? I don't know. But check out these two clowns, like pontificating to each other.
Along with my great friend and extraordinarily professional and fearless colleague.
And what's interesting is, like, that's the same suit. Like, that's the same smelly suit that he continues to wear. And mind you, yesterday, while I was at MetLife Stadium rooting on my Dallas Cowboys, on an unseasonably warm day in early October, this clown continues to wear the same suit. And you would think with all the money he got, right, from Tony Hector, that was reported in ELEC, right? I'm not making that up. That was an ELEC report. So the tens of thousands of dollars that Leonard Filipowski's been getting, where's it all going? It's not going in a wardrobe. Where's it going? But check out these two idiots conversing with each other, right? Just check this out.
David Still of the Exposure Report on YouTube.
So make sure to...
Someone needs to expose this idiot to a razor or like a trimming machine. You're a grown man, dude. Trim that beard. As a guy who can grow a full beard too, like, look presentable for God's sakes. It looks like you live under a bridge, but more on that in a moment.
Subscribe to him right now if you're not. He's incredible. He's going to be posting a lot more content. He's always got my back. He's always on the front. He's incredible.
Wait a minute. Does he have your back or your front? I mean, again, that's not my business, but I mean, Leonard, what are you insinuating here? But let's continue.
And we are at the extraordinary 50th anniversary New Jersey State Hispanic Parade. Let's take a look behind us here. And thousands of people from all over the state, all over the country come to this parade. And get into your frame, young man. Now, there's something very sad today, is I was banned for life from this parade.
Well, again, Leonard, the reason you're banned, not just from parades, but from a lot of other public places, is that you don't know how to conduct yourself. Now, listen, be it far from me. I mean, I have my moments when I lack decorum quite often. But folks, there's something to be said about if you're going to try to convince people or con people into believing you're a journalist, you need to sort of play the role and act accordingly, right? Now, more on, if you notice, both Leonard and whatever, I don't know, Bam Bam Bigelow over here are wearing around their necks are press credentials. And I'll tell you why that's not credible either, but I'll give me a moment just to sort of break this down. Folks, it's rich of this guy with his manufactured outrage, that at some point his antics would not wear thin on people. Listen, I'm all for grilling elected officials and candidates and guests on this program and asking the tough questions. But Leonard, you don't do that. You just don't do that. You prefer to show up somewhere, think you're entitled to all the time in the world, because again, Leonard Filipowski believes that he is the center of the universe, that he's the center of the galaxy, that something, somewhere, someone, wherever it is, has to answer to Leonard Filipowski because he's the end all be all. It's bullshit. It just is. But let's watch these children basically jerk themselves off on camera here with the love affair.
Myself and the Exposure Report were both in this parade last year. It was awesome. People loved it. They cheered us on.
I mean, we knew you were at the parade. We could smell you because you still wear the same smelly suit from year to year. So of course they know you were there. They could smell you, but let's continue.
We got hundreds and hundreds of messages, both the Exposure Report and myself, thanking us for the work we do, thanking us for justice.org, which is another one of our organizations that helps women who have been sexually assaulted or RAP'd by any political official or government employee in the state of New Jersey. Of subscription. If you subscribe to me, you got to subscribe to him because he's phenomenal.
Hit that like button.
Hit it, smash it, get your anger out in peaceful ways at the government. Smash that like button, get your anger out, smash it, crash it, punch it. All the things we do with the politicians is always peaceful, of course. All right, let's see if we can police officers to an interview because this is ground zero of First Amendment support and First Amendment protection. All the police here have been trained extremely well by a number of high-ranking officers, including Captain George Raposo of North Bergen, who is also one of my best friends, one of our best friends, and he is an extraordinary man. He is the person, he's the white whale. People are saying, oh, police don't respect the rights. He does, and he trains other police officers about that and other municipalities and city workers, city clerks.
You mean clowns gravitating to clowns? Wow. Color me surprised.
The government workers. And we've done some trainings with him on the past. And we need more Captain George Raposos. And the North Bergen police here, shout out to Mayor Sacco, Chief Farley, and Police Commissioner Pascal for supporting the First Amendment and supporting the training that Captain Raposo has been doing. He is extraordinary. In fact, do you see him anywhere, David?
Raposo?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right here.
Look at these two idiots. I mean, folks, you think Uncle Dave tiene una cara como mierda. Check out these two idiots here with David and Leonard. It's unbelievable.
Whatever endeavors I want to.
And across the board.
New Jersey State Police.
Yeah.
You know the new. Directly. Let's see. Thanks for joining us. Please smash that like button. And we're going to be here for a while. I got extra batteries, so we should be good.
Folks, I can't even take this seriously. Yeah, and you know what's interesting about them? And I'm not going to subject you to this nonsense here on this show because, I love my audience here. I don't want to subject you to losing brain cells while you're watching this con. But you know what's interesting about David and Leonard? These are the clowns that have the audacity to talk about, why should people have press credentials? Why should people subscribe to press credentials? We can just print our own at home, and that's it because we have freedom of the press. We're citizen journalism. Folks, here's an education for Leonard and David and for all the clowns that support these idiots about press credentials or regulations because they're the first ones to talk about, it's in the First Amendment. Freedom of the press. There should be no infringement on it. There should be no regulation on it. We should be able to print up our own press credentials because we want to. No, guys, this is what it is. You want to cite the Constitution? I'll cite another element of the Constitution. As an avid Second Amendment user, as an avid Second Amendment advocate, yes, folks, I have to prove who I am in order to be able to practice the Second Amendment responsibly. Okay? Unless David and Leonard want to just go on record and say, well, I don't care. We don't need to regulate anything. We don't need to make sure that people can identify who they are when exercising the Second Amendment. Oh, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. And for someone like myself who is as big a fan of the Second Amendment as there is, as someone who's a responsible person that goes for gun ownership, okay? There has to be some regulation. There has to be some oversight about how we engage with the Second Amendment. That doesn't mean we're infringing on it. We just want some responsible oversight. Now, yes, freedom of the press is guaranteed by the First Amendment, no question. But like any other profession, guys, there needs to be some oversight. There needs to be a regulatory organization or entity that oversees it. Not because I'm a fan of government overreach. I'm the last person that ever wants big government in anything. But there has to be some sort of oversight about who is able to acquire press credentials. You just can't walk into a federal building or a press conference or any political event with a copy of the Constitution and say, well, I'd say that this is my credential. No, it doesn't work that way. This is why David and Leonard are children. This is why their defenders, all 9 of them online, continue with the same bullshit narrative. Okay? Here in New Jersey, just like in all the other 49 other states, whether it's the New Jersey Press Association or the New Jersey Society of Professional Journalists, these 2 organizations oversee the profession of journalism in the sense of not just giving resources to journalists, real journalists, not professional agitators like Leonard Filipowski. Folks, you can say whatever you want about this podcast and what you think about my views. But there is no doubt, and listen, there are some establishment media that don't like me and don't want to refer to me as a journalist. Because maybe I didn't go to undergrad at Rutgers and get a journalism degree. Cool. I'm glad you did that. But journalism, like every other profession, folks, continues to evolve. And the reason that independent journalism and media is growing, especially with confidence with the public, is because we are out there doing the jobs that journalists, traditional journalists, have failed to do. So when I get invited to debates hosted by the New Jersey Globe or other news organizations, I have to be able to prove who I am. I have to be able to prove that what I'm doing is credible. Folks, it's not just about citizen journalism. That's not enough. Okay? And yes, while you're right, freedom of the press is guaranteed in the Constitution. But like any other profession, there needs to be some oversight. I can't just wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I want to sell real estate because I want to. No, I need to get a license for that. Okay? Just like I want to practice the Second Amendment, folks, I have to go through the proper channels and obtain a permit. There's an organization, there's an entity that engages in oversight. What is Leonard and David going to tell us that, oh, well, hey, if you want to be a responsible gun owner, oh, the hell with it. There shouldn't be any oversight whatsoever. Really? Is that what you're saying, guys? That there shouldn't be some process to apply for a permit to make sure the responsible people are practicing their Second Amendment rights? That there shouldn't be some sort of oversight to see that people are practicing the First Amendment responsibly? Because you guys aren't doing that. You're just agitators. That's why no one takes you seriously, Leonard. Never mind this picture, which again, folks, if there's anyone that ever embodies a lack of masculinity, and trust me, there's plenty of them in New Jersey media and advocacy. I talk about it all the time. Max Pizarro, Jay Lassiter, Stuart Thomas, like women, blatant women out there before our eyes. Folks, Leonard Filipowski isn't a serious journalist. He's a professional agitator. So don't be fooled by his narratives. There needs to be some oversight. Now, again, Leonard, with the $10,000 you got in June from Tony Hector, you would think, A, you could get a new suit. B, you could spend the money you need to apply for credentials. Because at the end of the day, folks, when it comes to being a responsible journalist, a respected journalist, a credible journalist, it's no different than any other profession. There has to be oversight. Printing up some credentials at home on your little Hewlett-Packard printer, sorry, folks, that's not credible. And just because you say it is, doesn't make it so. Someone needs to remind Leonard of that. Or when he goes to public meetings and decides to be disruptive and act like a child, better yet, act like an asshole, sorry, Leonard, it's hard to take you seriously. When you go running your mouth to other people about, well, Fernando said this, I'm going to keep saying what I'm saying because what I do is I spit facts. When people say, let this man cook, it's because I'm cooking. It's because I'm throwing facts out there, throwing information out there, educating the public. Not trying to indoctrinate anybody, not promulgating propaganda, which is what you excel at, Leonard. That's not journalism. Shouting at people, screaming at them in public events, public meetings, you're never going to get your way. Sorry that I have to be the adult in the room here and lecture you. Because you're much older than I am. To think that I have to lecture you on decorum, that's pretty effing sad. Because God knows I have my moments where I lack decorum. But folks, when it comes to being a professional in this business, I embody it. Okay? I pride myself on being the most professional journalist out there. Because I have real conversations, which produce real traffic, because it's real talk. That's what we do on this show, folks. Can't say the same about Leonard Filipowski. Going to parades, going to public meetings, going to churches, going to the State House, and acting like a child, thinking that he's entitled to go wherever he wants, whenever he wants, and say whatever he wants. No, Leonard, it doesn't work that way. That's not the real world. Okay? Don't know what type of job your parents did, but folks, what we can assess at this stage of his life, it was a pretty shitty job. Because you would think at some point Leonard would have learned the intricacies of decorum, being somewhat politically savvy, and most importantly, being courteous, being polite. Those aren't words I would ever use to describe Leonard Filipowski. And folks, unfortunately, no one's ever going to use them. Leonard might think he should have them, but folks, Leonard lives in an alternate world. Here in the real world, we can never take Leonard Filipowski seriously. We never have. And trust me, folks, none of us ever will. And that's my special comment. Folks, before we call it a night here, once again, thank you to everyone for incredible traffic here in the month of September. As we start the month of October, folks, over 85,000 organic views between Facebook, X, Instagram, and also on YouTube. Without all of you folks, this would not be possible. So a special thank you to all my family, friends, colleagues, frenemies, even the haters. Okay? Even some of the insufferable women in Hudson County that we know watch this show religiously because you can't help yourselves. You know, women like Stuart Thomas, insufferable lesbians like Caleb Burrell, smelly cat ladies out there like Amy Wilson. We all know who they are. You watch because you love it. Let's be honest. I mean, looking like this, that helps too. But yes, folks, on a serious note, thank you to everyone that continues to make Real Talk with Fernando Uribe a success here on the Jersey First Television Network. Always remember, please like, comment, and share tonight's episode, and all the episodes helps get the content out to more people, and it shows your support for fearless, independent media. Folks, as I said at the start of the program here, we're rocking pink throughout the month of October for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And as you know, coming up on Wednesday night, October the 15th, at the world-famous Waterside, located at 7800 River Road in North Bergen, New Jersey, overlooking the beautiful waterfront of New York City, I'll bring you the 2025 edition of the Professor's Quest to Save Breasts to benefit the American Cancer Society. Now, since 2008, folks, this event has raised over $68,000 to benefit the American Cancer Society, and more importantly, the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer campaign. Yet today, still thousands of families all across this country are struggling with breast cancer, but the American Cancer Society works very, very hard to help families cope with this dreaded disease and to work together to hopefully find a cure. So coming up on Wednesday night, October the 15th at 7 p.m., I'll be greeting you as you arrive with my amazing co-hosts that include Sylvia Sapinska, Vladimir Carrero, Alexandra Hammer, and Jacqueline Rodriguez. There'll be great raffles all throughout the evening from numerous very reputable restaurants and businesses here in Hudson and nearby southern Bergen County, which include Sojo Spa, Hen and Stone Spa in Edgewater, Rumba Cubana, Tapas España, as well as Blue in the Hudson, Trattoria Napoli, La Sorrentina, as well as other reputable businesses such as Team 48 Jiu-Jitsu in West New York, and many more prizes. So, folks, again, check it out on my social media, but mark it on your calendars. There is valet parking there, security at the door will guide you accordingly. But, folks, mark on your calendars, Wednesday night, October the 15th, at the world-famous Waterside for the 2025 edition of A Professor's Quest to Save Breasts. Again, folks, valet parking, outstanding music all night long by DJ Ziggy Roman, wine and sangria specials, and, of course, excellent networking opportunities all night long. And, folks, it really makes a difference in showing your support for the American Cancer Society. So, once again, mark on your calendars for Wednesday night, October the 15th, starting at 7 p.m., and we'll be going until closing time, probably sometime after midnight, folks, there. And from what I'm seeing with the weather report, it's going to be a great weather next Wednesday night. We'll have the roof open out there in the patio. Good-looking crowd. Listen, it's for a good cause. I can't say enough, folks. Let's make a difference together. And I'll see you all on Wednesday night, October the 15th, for A Professor's Quest to Save Breasts to benefit the American Cancer Society. And together, we'll defeat breast cancer once and for all. And that's our show for this week, folks. Once again, I want to thank Michael Russo, mayoral candidate in the city of Hoboken, for a great conversation tonight. And certainly during this election cycle, I'll keep talking to candidates that matter to you, the candidates you want to hear about. So I always appreciate that every single week here, the way you tune in to Real Talk here on the Jersey First Television Network. Folks, if you've been done so already, don't forget to like us on Facebook, or follow us on Instagram and X. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and of course, whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First and take it with you anywhere, anytime. Listen, it's still unseasonably warm. You can probably still hit the beach, go down the shore. I'm pretty sure you have your smartphone with you. Check out Jersey First. You'll never be disappointed. And speaking of Jersey First, folks, that's right. It's me, front and center here, representing Jersey First TV, educating and advocating for the great residents here in the state of New Jersey. Folks, nobody does it better than Jersey First TV, and especially Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Always remember, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Real Talk here on the Jersey First Television Network. That's right, folks. Again, we're rocking pink here. It's October. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We'll rock pink throughout the entire month here on the show. We appreciate your support. And once again, folks, let's do our part. And hopefully, we can defeat breast cancer once and for all. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I am the generational talent in Garden State media, and sort of the hero you need right now more than ever. As the establishment media lies to you, guess who won't? That's right. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Enjoy the rest of your week. Let's go, Cowboys. Let's hope the Yankees get back into this series here in the American League playoffs. Tomorrow night at home at Yankee Stadium, maybe a little home cooking. It's just what the Yankees need, hopefully, to tie this series in the American League divisional round. So we'll see. Obviously, folks, hockey, NBA right around the corner, Rutgers football. Folks, whatever it is you're doing, always remember to check out Jersey First TV and Real Talk right here every single week. I appreciate your support. Folks, that's right. I am Fernando Uribe, the most handsome face that runs the place. Thank you so much for tuning in here. Always remember, stay classy, everyone.